Welcome to Soul Connections with your host, Elena Angel.
Hello, this is Elena Angel and Soul Connections, the space for soulful conversations and explorations in consciousness. Thank you so much for joining once again. Your time and your energy are very important. And today's show is all about those two, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. My featured guest today is Sarah Rose Bright. Sarah is a sex, pleasure, and intimacy coach. She's a very dear friend and one of my favorite practitioners in the field of sexuality. A very genuine person and a very accomplished practitioner. A few days ago, Sarah and I recorded a conversation about sex, sexual energy, and ways in which we can literally ignite our passion. This is not only in a physical way, but also, and perhaps more importantly, in a creative way. You'll hear Sarah speak about living ecstatically, moment to moment, experiencing life in technicolor, living with a sense of purpose and delight. Sarah and I both share a background in Tantric and Taoist practice, so you'll hear us speak about that as well, the kinds of practices and rituals that you can start to explore and reap enormous benefits on many different levels. Stay tuned all the way to the end for details of Sarah's free gifts for you, as well as a short snippet from one of her guided meditations for you listening today. It's a beautiful practice to help you create your very own erotic vision. But more about that and all your free gifts later on. Right now, allow me to introduce you to Sarah Rose Bright. Today, I'm joined by a wonderful friend of mine. We go back a good decade, I think. Sarah Rose Bright. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Sarah is a leading certified sex, pleasure, and intimacy coach, empowering women and couples to discover and express their true sexual nature. Sarah is a pioneer as the UK's first certified sex coach. She's a founder of Ignite the Erotic and V-Life, working with hundreds of people to ignite their sexuality and live their full potential. I can tell you this is absolutely true. I've known you, Sarah, for so long, and I have witnessed your incredible work. We've also run a retreat together a while ago. So it's an absolute delight to share this conversation today about sexuality as the gateway to living your potential. Would you share with us some of your story? What brought you to this whole arena? I mean, sexuality is such a big topic, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction, and really delighted to be here on this wonderful show that you've created. So a little bit about my story, because people often think that I got into this work because I must have been amazing at sex. And it's absolutely totally the opposite. And I had quite a traumatic relationship in my teenage years, and that left me with very little self-esteem, very low body image, and was just terrified of sex. I didn't know what I wanted, didn't know that I could even ask for that. And I just went through to university, did the sort of trodden path, joined a corporation, was very successful in my 20s in this corporation. But inside, something wasn't right, and I was numbing myself out with various addictions to get through the day, and was very, very unhappy. And I love that Anais Nin quote, which is, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud became greater than the risk it took to bloom." And I think I just got to that point where I just something had to shift. It was just before my 30th birthday. And by then I had a daughter, and everything had continued to just get worse. And I was just like, if this is it for sex and relationships, and I just didn't know what was wrong. I knew I didn't want to go to a doctor, and a therapist just felt too serious for me at 29.
Right.
And so I went looking in bookshops, and I found a book on Tantra. And this was 16 years ago. And there wasn't much around as there is today. There's been an explosion of these sort of things. And I booked myself on this women's workshop for my 30th birthday. And it was so utterly scary and so incredibly life-changing. And it just opened up so much in my life. And I just saw how, I just thought I was the only one that was having these issues. I just thought everyone else was having a great time. And I went on this huge journey of seeing how common this is, and seeing the transformation that happened with the women that I was working with. And then started assisting on workshops, then started teaching. People started coming to me for advice. They saw what had shifted in my life, and I just got more and more curious, started exploring and training more myself. And never did I think 15, 16 years later, I'd be here today talking to you about this. And so I've had a 10-year practice now, and it's just my total joy and passion to share about this area, but help people to sort of explore this area of their lives, and to, we're just taught such a limited slice of what's possible in our world, and to really open up the amazing experiences that are possible, the healing that's possible, the transformation that's possible, and the pleasure that's possible.
Yes, indeed. I love what you said about that first workshop you attended, that you found it terrifying and at the same time so wonderful. And that's certainly been one of my own experiences. And you mentioned Tantra as well. Is that being a big discovery for you? Could you tell us a bit more about that? What kind of fears might one have to face, first of all? And what about Tantra? We hear a lot about it, and it's good to understand a bit more.
Yeah, wonderful. So, well, I was that scared that I didn't pay my money till the day before, because I was trying to get out of it, and I didn't tell anyone about it. And I can remember parking my car right by the gate, facing the gate, in case I needed to leave quickly, because I was that scared. And people can have so many different fears around this. And I think ultimately my fear was that I'd go on a workshop and everything I thought that was really bad would be confirmed, that actually this wasn't fixable, there is something deeply wrong with me, all of these sort of things. And I think that can be a massive fear for for many people I work with as well. Often people say to me, I'm broken, I'll be the only one that this never works for, and all of these sort of things. And the fears as well might be that things have to change in their lives. It might mean the end of a part of their lives that they have to give up to move forward with this. There can be just so many fears, and they're totally natural and normal, given that this area of our life is so taboo still.
Yes.
Often many people don't have friends, families, partners that they can honestly and openly have a conversation around. And even where they have conscious relationships about all other aspects of their life, sex can be the one where that doesn't happen. And so we just maybe we're not used to talking about it. We haven't got a language for it. So many different things.
Yes.
So for any of the listeners, that's totally natural and normal. But the first step is often the biggest. And so once you start to address it, it's amazing how that can shift. And it can become, there was a time when I couldn't say some of the words like about body parts and things without, utterly cringing, because it was so awkward. So yeah, totally common.
Yeah, this feeling of embarrassment or shame is quite prevalent, isn't it, in our culture around sexuality?
Absolutely, it's very, very common, and so that's the saying that shame cannot exist where we shine a spotlight on it. The more we talk about it, the more we take it out of the sort of corners of the shadows of shame, and the more that we can. When I work with groups of women, it's often just having the healthy conversations that in themselves are part of the transformation. And to go, oh wow, you feel that too, or I never imagined that would happen for you, or just having those sort of conversations, it just really can be extremely powerful.
Extremely powerful and extremely healing. It's possibly one of the greatest acts of self-love and self-acceptance a person can experience in themselves when they finally let go of the shame.
There's an amazing woman called Pam Costa, and she did some research where she brought women together just to talk about their sexual challenges and concerns and issues for 4 weeks. And she did this for a few times, and the research showed that just by getting them together to talk about it, no expert, no nothing, that all of their sexual problems reduced really significantly just in the conversation. So it really is powerful, but it's sometimes we just don't have that person around us or those people.
Yes. Going back to the question about Tantra.
Tantra, yeah.
Did you look for that specifically to deal with sexuality, or how did you get to it?
So no, I didn't know it existed. And when, 16 years ago, Tantra was not a name that's sort of as widely talked about it as today.
Yes.
And it was just, I was in a bookshop in the UK, and I found a book on Tantra in the sexual self-help section. And I started to look at this book, and I just intuitively knew there was something in there for me. And little bits I was reading made some sort of sense. But as I was looking at it, I thought, this is not something I'm going to learn from a book. And this is where I started looking on the internet for what was out there. And I didn't know anything about it, but just something in the word really spoke to me. And that's when I found the workshop and ended up, experiencing that, working in the Tantra field for a number of years, and very much in the sort of what some people might call Western Tantra or Neo-Tantra. So Tantra that's sort of taught by Western teachers and has been adapted for more Western lifestyles.
Right.
And it really just blew my mind as to, I just thought sex was about heading for penetration. If I'm, with a male partner, heading for penetration, going for the goal of orgasm. And if I didn't get there, somehow I'd sort of failed or not got it quite right. and
Yes.
That was the sort of what I knew. I didn't know anything more than that, because that's pretty much, what we learn in the mainstream.
Yes. The element that I found most spoke to me when I stumbled upon the tantric perspective is this notion of energy, of seeing sexuality as an expression of the vital life force. And this is something that maybe people who are practicing yoga are familiar with already. But for me, just having this new understanding of what sexuality is in a person's body, first of all, never mind another person and sex, just having this flow in the body, that the experience of that vital energy in the body is a really the core experience of everything that we are. And it is very intimately linked with sexuality, but not exclusively, right? It expresses in many different ways. So could you tell us about that? What is your perspective? What's your experience shown you?
So I totally agree. And I think, how we learn sex in the West is that sex is often something that happens in relation to another person, as opposed to something that's for us and that exists 24/7. And our sexual energy absolutely is our life force. It's our creative force. Our sexual energy and our sexual expression in one aspect can create human life. It's that powerful. And if we aren't creating human life with it for whatever reason, we can use it for so much else, which is what the Taoists and the Tantrikas have known for centuries, that our our life force is a tool for our health, our longevity, our creativity, for really living our optimum expression of ourselves. And when we reframe it as that absolutely changes everything.
Yes.
It changes how we show up in the world, how we feel about ourselves. And that's a journey that to reclaim it for ourselves, rather than it being about something that shows up with the other.
So how does a person do it? I mean, when you started to work on yourself, um, and you trained and you worked on yourself, and then you started working with other people, what does the process involve? What does a person have to do? And
In terms of, like, for example, in
so,
Tantra,
so
or
for example, are there certain practices? Is it different for men or women? Um, what kind of person expect to see change in their life? Is it linked to a particular problem? So, for example, let's say a woman is having difficulty reaching an orgasm. Okay, that's
yep,
quite common, right?
yeah.
So, how would working like with energy or tantrically shift that, and what else will change in her life, do you think, if she is able to achieve that
Mm.
solution, let's say?
Yeah, yeah. So I think when we learn sort of sex and sexuality, if you look at it in the movies or the pornography, it's very much about going for the goal. It's very physical,
Yes.
and there's a certain set of behaviors that happen in the body to get to that goal. So it often is about tensing the body. It's about shallow breathing, things getting faster and faster, and that's what we see as the way to have sex, and that's sort of held up as the norm, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one way, and there's nothing wrong with going with for the goal of having physical sexual expression. But what, in Tantra, we talk about the energy body, the subtle energies that we can experience and allow. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're tense, when we're shallow breathing and going for the
Mm-hmm.
goal, we're never going to reach those.
Right.
So what Tantra did for me, and for example, working with somebody around challenges around orgasming, is looking at the habits that they've got into sexually,
Mm.
which is, those sort of habits are very common. And it may be that when they self-pleasure, again, it's just about going for the goal and not exploring or feeling the rest of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I describe it to people as we have a sort of bandwidth of how we can experience pleasure and energy in our body that becomes restricted if we're shallow breathing or if we're
Mm.
rushing different things. So the tantric practices and the Taoist practices really open us to really relax and be in the moment, to really fully experience the moment and to really notice what's happening. So it can be the subtle energy that we can expand and feel and experience that we miss if we're rushing for the goal.
Mm.
Um, and so, and that energy can be so subtle for people when they first start to work with it that they can easily miss it. And so it's
Yes.
about really helping somebody to slow down and notice and tune in to usually what's happening in their body already, but they're just missing. And to start to have a language for that. And I think as well, we sort of see pleasure, that hot, intense pleasure is
Mm.
better than cooler, warmer pleasures. But it's often in those cooler, warmer pleasures which we can get in touch with more of the energy that's running through our bodies. So you look at, if we're touching much slower and more
Mm-hmm.
lighter, we're going to feel more than if we're touching faster and firmer.
Mm.
There's lots of different things people can explore. And really key to that is relaxing the body and breathing more fully. The more we breathe, the more we can feel in our bodies.
Mm. Fantastic. Um, so it is quite a physical practice. One would work with the body, right? To move it, to unwind it, to breathe it.
Well, I think for so many people,
Yeah.
being in the body is maybe not something that's so familiar.
Right.
If we're living in, we know it may be that we're living busy lives, lots of times at the computer and different things, so we may be
Mm.
not so aware of what's happening in the body. And sometimes in meditation practices even, and it's about bypassing the body and focusing on more of the spiritual aspects.
Right.
And so I really sort of encourage people to find practices that helps them to connect more into their bodies on a day-to-day basis, to feel more, to trust more, because then that opens something different up.
Yes, I certainly love the Taoist practices, especially
Yeah.
that really marry the two. There's the subtle and the spiritual with the physical as well.
Yes.
There's this awareness and the presence and an expanded awareness while still very much in the body,
Yeah.
very connected with it. So what could hinder the flow of a person's sexual energy? You've already mentioned like the stresses and the habits. What else could be going wrong?
Yeah, there's our lifestyles. So it can be just, we're so stressed and burnt out and exhausted in life. A lot of people are
Mm,
at the moment. That's going to have a massive impact. Past experiences, if we've got unaddressed trauma, shame, guilt, these sort of
mm,
things. Our beliefs around pleasure, energy, can really affect us, or what's possible if we've
mm,
I really recommend to people to go and explore and study this, because there's just so much to learn. And also, if we're not able to switch off, if we are not feeling good about who we are in our bodies, all of these things are going to have an impact.
mm,
It can be internal things, it can be external things, it can be current things, it can be past things. There's such a range of things that can really impact. And when these things are happening, our life force often isn't fully flowing.
mm,
If we're not consciously, if, for example, if we're not feeling any desire in our lives, if we're
mm,
not feeling confident sexually, if we are experiencing sexual challenges, that's going to shut the life force off in the rest of our lives, not just in our sex life as well.
mm, mm.
I love that phrase, how you are in anything is how you are in everything. And it just affects everything, our sense of
Yes,
who we are, our confidence, our creativity, our visibility in the world, our energy levels, all sorts of
yes,
different things.
yes. And this is very true of men as well as of women. I think there are certain stereotypes uh,
Mhm.
of what a sexually powerful being might look like.
Mm.
And I think a lot of us fall a bit short of that. It's just not realistic, really, is it? It's not like a genuine human being. It's not like that. A more of caricature ideas of what we should be like, and that's one way in which we judge ourselves, maybe, or start to shut our own energy down um, through our own negative um, self-assessment,
Yeah.
right?
And comparison,
Yes,
that comparison
comparison.
of, I should have this perfect body, this perfect sex life, the perfect partner, all of these things that we have an image of what they should be like.
Yeah.
And then we don't notice or appreciate. We're always telling ourselves what we're not,
Yes.
rather than cultivating who we are.
Yes. Absolutely. So, what is possible, do you think, when you fully embrace this sexual energy? Do you think everybody can do it, first of all? Is this accessible to all?
Absolutely, 100%. Totally believe that it's possible if you've got if you've got the curiosity and it's something that interests you. I think it's absolutely possible.
Hmm. Tell us a little bit about what's happened in your life. I mean, you clearly changed your career. Okay. Obviously, I mean, you seem very happy. I know you're very, very productive and creative. You're always teaching and producing wonderful new projects and courses and things. And you always have a beautiful smile, and you're such a wonderful person to be around. So I can see it in you. Um, what would you like to share with us that maybe is not so obvious to see? And what have you seen from the people you've worked with? What kinds of changes?
Yeah, so I and for me it's ongoing and ever deepening. And so for me, it really has changed everything in my life. I cannot, beyond what I ever imagined would be possible. And
Mm,
those horizons keep opening up and opening up to a next level of, wow, I didn't know that was possible. And then I don't have that, I certainly don't like to put myself out there as some perfect person. I
mm,
feel that, there's days when I'm, most days I'm happy and creative and energetic and all of those wonderful things. But then
mm,
there's days when I can be more negative. There's days when I'm low in energy. But I think or I have thoughts that aren't so helpful, but I think I have them significantly less. And when I
yes,
do have them, I notice them quicker and I have the tools to get out of them quicker.
right.
And I feel that's like a good measure
Okay.
And then sometimes we just have troughs where there's a new level of something to come through, and we just hit something's not working for us anymore, and we don't want to let it go, or there can be all sorts of things. But
Yes.
I embrace it now, whereas before it would be just terror. Um,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so it's affected me in so many different ways, and I feel like healthier and happier now in my mid-40s, and I just see that blossoming. And I
Right.
see this with all my clients. I mean, I just sometimes I describe it, it's like my clients, I describe their lives as they come to me and their lives are in black and white, and they leave and their lives are in technicolor. And it's
Right.
like the changes that when they embrace it and when they are open up to this aspect of their life, what flourishes in terms of their relationship with themselves, how they feel about themselves. They maybe take risks at work where they wouldn't have done. And they start new projects that are creative where they maybe thought they couldn't do that, or they haven't got time for that. They put themselves first in different aspects of their lives, and just how they show up in the world is just amazing, you know. And that's what gives me
Yes.
the most, you know, beautiful satisfaction, is to see somebody blossoming in those ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. One of the topics that has always fascinated me, it's been such a big motivation, is to fulfill my soul purpose. And
Hmm.
a lot of the people I work with come with the questions, oh, I don't know, or if they have an idea, it's like, I'm not sure I can.
Yep.
So do you see a relevance? Do you see a connection between sexuality, this sexual life force, and being on purpose, having a sense of that fulfillment and meaning in life?
Absolutely. And there's a phrase from a Margot Anand books, who's, as you know, is like a sort of grandmother of Western Tantra. And she describes Tantra as to live every moment orgasmically.
Mm,
And I just love that phrase, that we're just so alive in every moment that everything is just orgasmic, whether it's, you know, watching a sunset, a conversation with a friend, whether it's lovemaking, eating a piece of fruit, that, you know, we just have that juiciness. And I think what the question it really invites us to ask is, it's like, what really lights me up? What really turns me on? What really just speaks to me at such a deep level? And asking that about your sex life, but also about your whole life.
mm,
And so I totally see the people that I work with in my own experience, just that they come to address something in their sex lives, but then they start to asking, what else do I really want in life? Why am I spending time in this job that doesn't satisfy me? Or why am I just holding back and waiting for this time that's never going to happen when I'll start this new career?
yes.
All of these questions. And I think it strengthens the radar to ask those questions. But I also, because people often talk to me about this, and I for years spent years trying to find my soul purpose, and I would beat myself up. I don't know what it is, I'll never get there. And I see this happen quite a bit. And so for me, it was just about relaxing and following what really lights me up. And when I did that, and that became my sort of compass, you know, point on the compass, if you like, then it started to show me, this is who I love to work with, this is where I want to be. And it just keeps deepening and deepening that. So I totally believe there's an absolute correlation between it.
Yes. Um, Tell us about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
How do relationships change when one or both partners are now attuned and flowing in this new way?
Mm. I feel, I mean, it just changes in if both partners are up for that and they're both flowing in this way, then it just opens up whole new dimensions in their relationship. And, you know, again, not just in the bedroom, but out of the bedroom as well. It opens up to deeper love and deeper connection, and just much more deeper fulfillment. And then in the bedroom, and having practices, I think, you know, when it comes to sort of sex, we don't have a culture of practice. It's just like we're expected to show up in the bedroom and produce the concert without putting the time in to practice the instruments. And I
Mm,
feel like, you know, couples that create time to practice together, and also maybe might be doing things like meditate together, do
mm,
yoga together, all these sort of things, it just opens up whole new dimensions, and it's just magical to witness. And I've witnessed it myself and experienced it myself.
mm. one of my first tantric experiences was completely unprepared, on the face of it at least. I'm prepared very consciously, but so I had an experience of what one might call transcendental sex.
Yeah.
Where one ceases to be the familiar identity.
Yeah.
And it's quite extraordinary when that happens. All kinds of magical things occur. And I know some people, read about things in books and really want that,
Mhm.
that expanded, transcendent feeling, the ecstasy. What would you say about that? What's your experience? What's your recommendation?
So well, first of all, yeah, absolutely, it's possible. But what I notice is not to make it a goal in and of itself,
Right.
because then actually that can actually block it from happening. So for a lot of people that I work with, it's starting for some people with unlearning the habits that will stop them ever getting there.
Mm.
So, for example, if you're sort of in those experiences and you're tightening and tensing the body, or holding your breath and different things like that, things that we learn in our body can limit that happening. But then it's about really creating time to practice and explore that. And you can get to those places on your own as well. It doesn't have to be just with a partner, for those who are listening who don't feel they could do that with a partner, or who haven't got a partner to do that with. It's absolutely 100% possible to get there on your own. And so really, it's creating the time and space for that to happen as well, because I think we live in a culture where we want a quick fix.
Yes.
And actually sometimes, that can take time, but it's so worth it. Like you, I've had some just incredible mind-blowing experiences,
Right.
where just absolute deep oneness or out-of-body experiences during sort of tantric rituals and things. So just to be really open to that, to practice and explore that. And I think having, one of the reasons, like you, I really love the Taoist practices, is they give very simple day-to-day practices to help us to connect more to our energy and to open our energy channels up, and to keep them open. So I think having those sort of practices, and certain yoga practices, and my favorite is Qigong as a practice. And Qigong literally means to cultivate our life force energy. And so it's one of the reasons I just love that practice so much. So I think having practices as well to support that can really help.
Fantastic. And you're kindly offering our listeners some meditations with which they can download, right? Could you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So there's two. There's one is the inner smile for your sexual self, and the inner smile is a very one of the foundational Taoist practices that, when we practice sending the smile, cultivating the smile, and sending this smiling chi through our bodies, what it does to our bodies, to calm us, to light us up. Also, there's books written just on this practice alone. It's an amazing practice. And I've sort of adapted that, where we just connect with our sexual beingness, because it may be that that's a place that you don't totally love right now, or it may be a place you don't regularly connect to. So this meditation is an opportunity to just spend 10 minutes just being with and smiling at that part of yourself. And it's really simple, but really beautiful. So that's one. And then the second one is what I call an erotic vision meditation. So we often have visions for different parts of our lives. Like we've got a vision for our health, a vision for our work. And not many people have a vision for their sexual selves, their erotic selves. So this is a little guided meditation to entertain that for yourself, and to see what comes up through the meditation, rather than through the sort of rational mind. And so it's something that you can revisit again as well, again and again. So I really hope you enjoy them.
Yes, thank you so much. You're also contributing to our monthly prize draw. Thanks again. And one lucky listener is going to win a 1-hour session with you. What could they expect?
So I'm offering an hour of my time So it may be that you have a specific challenge or issue that you'd love some support on. It may be that there's something in this call that you've in this interview that you've thought, oh wow, I'd really love to know more about that, or I'd really like to find out how I can deepen into that. So it's your space for 1 hour to explore whatever feels the most alive and relevant for you. And you might be really clear on that, or I've had it where I've done things like this before and you don't know till we get on the call together what that is. But that is there for you, and for you to use in whatever way feels good for you.
Thank you so much. That is so very generous of you, Sarah. And can you give us some tips or guidelines, just a few key practices maybe that somebody could try out if they're just starting out?
I feel there's just two things I think, there's so much, and I think two easy things that I can share is one, how are you with pleasure in your day-to-day? How are you with feeling good in your body day-to-day? And I feel that it's a practice that we can cultivate because we do have our limits, and we may not give ourselves permission for pleasure. We may have beliefs around that, or and so just practicing what feels good, and particularly I feel for a lot of people in your bodies, because even people who do, for example, and I do a lot of yoga, but even people who do a lot of yoga, I've noticed, can come at it from quite a technical place and a workout place, rather than about feeling good. And so, what lights you up in the day to day and what feels good in your body. So just invite you to maybe just, think about what you've done in the last week. Do you really give yourself permission for that? And what you might do in the next week to give yourself permission to experience more pleasure. And it might be little things. It can be just stopping and stretching at your desk for 5 minutes if you've been sat down all day. It can be choosing to do something that feels good after work rather than going home. It can be and not extravagant things. It might be choosing to go outside for half an hour in the fresh air, when you feel like you should be at the computer, or whatever it is. So just really invite you to sort of exercise that muscle of pleasure in the day-to-day, because often it's what happens out of the bedroom that can feed into what happens in our everyday life that can feed into our sexual selves. So that's one thing I'd really invite people to consider, because look at that in your life. And the other thing is to have some sort of committed sensual erotic practice. So that might be, whether you're single or in relationship, that can happen. For example, this is where I love the Taoist practices, because they give you very sort of specific practices that you can do every day to connect to your sexual energy and your life force. It might be, for example, one of my favorite practices for women is breast massage, because it's very simple and very quick, but there's so much that can, it helps to stimulate oxytocin and helps to get our sexual energy activated when we're massaging our breasts. Not for some women that doesn't happen instantly, it takes time. Or it might be with your partner. So just taking time to spend a bit of time in the morning rather than rushing out of bed. It doesn't, for example, one of the favorite practices I give clients is something me and my partner do, which is just naked cuddles, where we just spend 10 minutes lying opposite each other and just being with each other in a very intimate way, but we don't have to do anything. And having these little practices that weave into our lives help keep this aspect of us, our sexual energy and our sexual life force alive and flowing, just as pleasure does in the day-to-day. So more pleasure day-to-day. And sometimes I'm a great value of what I call micro-practice. So things can take 2 minutes, but they can totally shift our state. It doesn't have to take big time. And the same, having some sort of regular sexual, sensual, erotic practice for yourself and or with your partner as well.
Thank you so much. I love how you are able to distill something that is very, very deep, very profound, very transformative into like a simple, what looks like a simple practice, or short practice. I mean, traditionally, some of these practices take a very long time.
Absolutely. And it's great if you've got the time, and I really encourage you to create the time. If you're in a relationship, create evenings together and different things. And then but this is it, the reality of our lives. And I think if people do it for a few minutes and start to feel good, then they've got more motivation to do it a little bit more. And if you feel like you've got to have hours and then you don't do it, then you can feel worse and then you just give up. So
Yes.
it's about how do you find little things that really start to activate this in your life, and then they become the good habits that you start to really build on. So yeah, and also to encourage you just to go learn. There's so much out there nowadays: books, workshops, online courses. You know, whether it's me or with somebody else, go and learn about this area of your life. You know, if there's something that has lit you up on this call, go and find a book, go and study, and go and explore, because it just opens up so much. As I hope you got that message from the conversation.
Yes,
In all
yes,
aspects.
absolutely, absolutely. And for every person, it's as you say, to find where the interest is, where the spark is, and to
Absolutely.
follow it, and then build on that and let it grow and expand. Wow, this is gorgeous. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us today. Do you have any last message for us?
I think I've just given it those
You've
last
just
messages.
given it.
Just
Fabulous.
to do the little things, and it's planting those little seeds and watching them grow. And for some of you, you might want to dive in and plant, you know, really go for it with something big and commit in different ways. But I think for a lot of people, those little seeds are the steps in. And you know, it really just, it is like planting the seeds and watching something grow, and then the fruits blossom. And that's what I see over the time in my work and my life as well. So it really does open, you know, like the message is, it really does open us out into more of ourselves in all aspects of our lives. And that can only be a wonderful thing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks again. It's been an absolute delight once more.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And yeah, wonderful.
Wonderful. Until next time.
Take care.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
That was Sarah Rose Bright. You can find out more about Sarah and her coaching, her online courses, as well as some amazing workshops and retreats by visiting her website, www.sarahrosebright.com. You'll find a contact form on the website so you can get in touch with Sarah directly. You will also find her on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Look for Sarah Rose Bright or Sarah Rose Bright Sex Coach. And remember to email us here at soulconnections@elenaangel.com to claim your free meditations, the erotic vision meditation, and the inner smile meditation for our sexual selves. Don't forget to send your entry for the free prize draw to win one of the many wonderful prizes we have, including the free session with Sarah. Our email again, soulconnections@elenaangel.com. I'm really excited about you using these tools and exploring your sexual energy, especially if this is new to you. I'd love to hear what you experience as you use the meditations, because I know they can be amazing. So please write and share. You can also send in questions and let me know how I can support you in being the wonderful you that you are. Write to us here at soulconnections@elenaangel.com. Thank you so much for listening. Join me again next time for yet another exciting topic and even more gifts. It's goodbye for now. This is Elena Angel and Soul Connections.
I invite you to see a little flame, imagining this little flame. It's your erotic fire. It might be a little flame, it might be a big flame. It's connecting with this flame and breathing. And as you breathe from your pelvis, this charges this flame, expands this flame inside of you, burning brightly, igniting more of that erotic energy within you. Breathing up from the root, up to your heart, igniting your heart, your capacity for love, especially love for yourself. And as this fire expands all the way up to your crown, connecting you to your higher wisdom, your higher consciousness, to the place of infinite possibilities, with that flame burning from the root up through your heart and your crown. And then from your crown, as you're ignited with your erotic fire,
Thanks for tuning in to tonight's broadcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to you being with us for the next edition of Soul Connections, where you can always find soulful topics and inspiring guests. To find out more about Elena, her work, and how to get in touch, just go to www.elenaangel.com. From all of us to all of you, blessings from Soul Connections.